Welcome to an hour of power. I am Keith Anthony Blanchard, spiritual teacher, musician, author of the best-selling book Homecoming: Crossing the Bridge to the Soul, and your host of Center of Light. Let's dive in. Hello everyone, Keith Anthony Blanchard here, Center of Light Radio. Halloween is coming, and I don't mean the event that you used to every year on the 31st. In prep, we have been working on, are you clear? As the light begins to push, it always pushes, but the door is open. Are you clear? Halloween's coming. What is Halloween? That's going to be my next presentation, Halloween 2020. But it's not going to be what you think about. October's coming. November's coming. You can fill in the blanks. We're going to call that Halloween. It's going to be, in fact, it's going to be hallowed. It's going to be sacred, y'all. Wow. It's not going to be scary. I have a fantastic show for you tonight. Welcome to Center of Light, Center of Divine Unfoldment and Reinforcement. Strap in, my broham sisters. We're going to fall into inner space tonight for sure. We're going to be some astronauts. Tonight, my guest is Dr. Helen Hensley, and we're going to be speaking about her near-death experience. She gave me some bullet points of things. We're going to touch on those, but this is a can of worms that's freshly opened up for me. I've had a couple of guests before in my past, my 10 years of doing this. 10 years. I'm loving every moment of it. But near-death guest. But this one came this beautiful lady came highly recommended by Michelle Freed. And so here we sit, and we're going to get to it. So let me tell you a little bit about my guest. Oh, I did post in the forum how you can jump seat from here to Amazon and purchase this bestseller, which is released August 1st. August 1st. Went bestseller thanks to the UK. I love the Brits now, all of a sudden. And my beautiful little Queen Sheba Crystal's laying on the bed being this gorgeous little 8-month-old kitten cat. I just love her. She's a handful. She wants my attention all the time, and I love it. I'm grateful. I'm blessed. I'm humbled. And sometimes I'm agitated. I am all that. I'm a divine human being. Let me tell you about my guest. And also, in closing, if you have purchased Homecoming Across the Bridge to the Soul and you read it, now would be the great time to jump seat on with that hyperlink and teleport yourself to Amazon and give me a review. Let me tell you about my guest tonight, Dr. Helen Hensley. That sounds like a huge name, Dr. Helen Hensley, author of Dianetics, whatever. Tonight we're going to be speaking. I want to give you the title. This is really important for me. Center of Light, Near-Death Experience, Healing with Sound, Vibration, Frequency, and Light. And I want to offer not only frequency as in a frequency, but frequency as in how frequent, a frequency of things. Dr. Helen Hensley was involved in a car accident that was to change her life forever. With vivid clarity, she was able to recount all that took place during her near-death experience, along with a reconnecting to her life's purpose, to healing. Mary Helen has facilitated the healing process for countless individuals and is one of Ireland's and Europe's most sought-after metaphysical healers. Dig that. Wit, wisdom, and wow are synonymous with Dr. Helen Hensley. Her marriage of no-holds-barred humor, oh dear Lord, here we go, and honesty coupled with integrity and she's laughing, I can see her, and integrity and compassion make her one of Ireland and Europe's most sought-after metaphysical healers and synergistic speakers. After receiving a BA in Communications and Graphic Design from Coker University in Hartsville, South Carolina, Mary Helen was involved in a high-speed collision in Charleston, hodgepodge of bio, South Carolina, which resulted in a near-death experience, riddled with injuries, including a broken neck. Wow. She went on to earn a doctorate in chiropractic at Sherman College of the Chiropractic in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Endowed with the gift of downloading an individual's biography in order to change their present state biology, Dr. Hensley has facilitated the healing process for countless individuals. Let me share with you some of her books before we bring on Center of Light. I'm actually going to post her link now, so make sure you go to her page and make a huge stank all over it. Let her know you exist. These are the books that author of 9 books. Promised by Heaven, co-author of a number of bestseller bringing death to life, and understanding is the new healing, miraculous recoveries from the physical and emotional. Other notes. The Promise trilogy, promised by heaven, and the link is there. Let me do one final thing. Hello, sister.
Hello.
Boy, that's a big to-do list. I mean, you've done a lot, and this.
I think we need
this
the Cliff Notes version of that.
yeah, one of the first questions I ask pretty much most the guests that come on Center of Light Radio is, other than the car accident that shifted you into this experience of who you're still forming into now, was this some part of spirituality and metaphysicality, a part of your lifestyle?
Not to the extent that it is now. In a completely different way. I'm the daughter of a Southern Baptist minister, so that's where it gets really fun. So yeah, preacher's daughter. Yeah, I see the face.
So, when did the accident happen?
1991.
1991. That's a long time ago. That's 29 years ago.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. It was, yeah, I had a, classic kind of Southern Baptist upbringing, and, grew up in the Bible Belt. I
I'm
was
sorry.
fortunate. Thank you.
Please continue.
I was fortunate that the type of minister that my father was, he was also a football coach. And so his sermons would revolve more around that kind of positive, motivational, what happened on the football field on Friday night kind of vibe, as opposed to the holy roller, fire and brimstone. And, but definitely, a belief in heaven and hell, and following the commandments and all that goes with that. So I would have kind of grown up in a very traditional Christian background. So I am many, many, many miles and millennia away from that now at this stage.
Yeah, I hear you, because I'm a recovering Catholic, so I get you. But all that being said, it still does, or does it for you, have its beautiful foundation in this pillar of you. I mean, I love Catholicism. I don't like the dogmatic stuff, but I love the participatory nature of Catholicism. You stand, you kneel, you sing, you're a part of it, versus just sitting back and listening. So, and that way for me, I kind of respect, we all go through that phase when we start to wake up. There's the angry phase, right? The middle finger phase, right? To that establishment. Would that be true for you?
Oh, absolutely. I think I had that very early on, because I was that precocious little kid in the back of the room going, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. From early on. And yeah, it's definitely a part, like the community, the sense of community, the sense of, where two or more are gathered. The strength of that is definitely a foundation that I am deeply grateful for in my life. And the people, the nature of the people that were part of my upbringing, the fact that my youth group that I grew up in was so solid, and it was really, really active. I got to do a lot of things and travel and work with people. And so that sense of stewardship was very strong. And so that's what I take. Again, like you, the dogma, definitely not my cup of tea. Yeah, so I'm kind of like in that whole no dogmas allowed phase of life right now. And yeah, but I wouldn't change that foundation for anything. It was something I was able to grow on.
Sure. And for me, that's more church than anything, is the community being solid. What does a church stands for? A pillar of light. And you have all these people coming together in community and service and fellowship. That's more of any said religion than the actual words that are being spoken and the dogmatic stuff that you're being shaking your finger at. That's the true sense of church, yeah? Us becoming the church, the Christ body.
Right. And Southern Baptists love to eat. I always enjoyed that part. There was always a covered dish dinner going somewhere.
I love it. Same with Catholicism. We couldn't wait
Fried
for
chicken and Jesus.
right. We couldn't wait for a wedding or a funeral because we would eat and dance. Well, some religions don't let you dance. At least we had a little bit of leeway. And of course, Catholics were allowed to drink. And as an altar boy, one of the perks of being altar boy, I would go behind when no one was looking in the whatever you call the sanctuary where the altar boys hang out before the mass. No one was looking. Keith was digging in the cabinet, sipping on some great wine.
Oh yeah, well, of course I live in Ireland, and Catholicism is our
Yeah, right.
predominant religion here. So yeah, we love a good funeral because out come the hang sandwiches, and you know,
You go,
and
girl.
and that's one of the things that I actually really love about Ireland because my whole business is talking about life and death. And one of the things that I think is so beautiful about this country is that they really have maintained a sense of normalcy around death. Um, which when I return home to the States and I go and visit, it's quite different than it is here because they still wake people here. It's still a 3-day event. It is grandma is in the casket in the sitting room and the kids are running around and eating sandwiches and drinking tea, and someone's propped up against the casket, and a kid will run in with the sandwich hanging out of their mouth and go, "I love you, Granny," and then run back out of the room again, and she's dead as a
Like,
doornail in there. And there's just this great reverence around um, the transformation and the passing.
I want to say hello to everyone in Facebook. Amber, Jody. I can't get to everyone. Melinda, everyone. Carl Welch. He was interested in near-death experiences since he was young. Everyone on YouTube. That would be Kelly and Helena. So 1991, you're in a car doing whatever you're doing. I don't need to know about the details. That's really not what the show's about. So you in this experience, give us just a small snippet. It doesn't have to be graphic. You're driving or riding along, and next thing you know, did you see a bang coming, or was it just that you were in it?
No, I was that cliche statistic that you're less than 2 miles away from home. I was on my way to a Christmas party at work, and I was sitting at a red light. And I was at a major intersection, Highway 17. And so when I made my way across the traffic, I looked left, and there was a car that was obviously intending to run the red light. And it happened to be an elderly gentleman who had nearly killed 2 people earlier that year, and shouldn't have been on the road. But he put the pedal to the metal and blew through the red light and hit me 75 miles an hour.
I know what that's like. A year and a half ago, coming back from South Louisiana from seeing my father, near the house, some guy just comes we were merging onto the highway from this ramp, and he's going so fast. My friend who was driving says, "Oh my God, Keith, we have to about to get hit," and that was it. And the car flipped 3 times. How long did it take for you to get? Not that you even are. I hope you are. From the trauma, that immediate bang, just the energy wash that just truly moves through every fiber of your being and shakes you moves you off of your core to where you don't even have to hit anything in the car. You don't have to hit your head. I mean, just that level of combustion. And do you still carry that around? When I drive in traffic, this isn't a year and a half ago, and I'm a pretty solid guy inside, but when I double, I'm checking. I'm
Oh, I
seriously.
look 10 times now, right and left. That's never going to stop. And you get a little tweak when you hear an ambulance or anything like that. But what
Yeah, right.
what was so fascinating for me though was that, again, completely different than anything I had ever been told death was going to be like. Um, when I looked and I saw that car coming at me, everything just suddenly slowed down. And in that moment, I became acutely aware that I was completely in control of what was going to happen. And so I knew that I had the option to stay in my body and experience the impact, or I could go. And so I'm like, man, that's going to hurt. And I was out of there. And so there was this noise, this drone, this vibration, this frequency that just suddenly appeared. And the next thing I knew, I'm hovering above and I'm looking down and everything speeds up and smack. I watch my car get hit. That's what was so bizarre about this, um, was the fact that everything just ground to a halt and I was in complete control as to how it was going to play out. And this was quite amazing. So you can imagine, quite contrary to, hey, Jesus is going to be there, or your grandmother, or Peter at the pearly gates, or anything. It was just so not like that. And I'm just sitting there and I'm looking down with just this detached interest. And people are like, "Aren't you? Weren't you just freaking out?" And you're just in this complete state of calm. It's completely normal. I'm looking down. I look like a little puppet hanging there in the car, and you know, the car T-boned. It went directly into the driver's side. My head went through the driver's side window. The seat folded up under me. The car's spinning around the intersection, and I'm watching all of this happen. And I really think it's important because a lot of people ask, what was I feeling in that moment? Well, the best description I've ever come up with is, if you were outside and it was a hot day and you were mowing the lawn and you were all nasty and sweaty and your clothes are stuck to you, and you come in the back door and you peel those clothes off and you throw them down by the washing machine, and then you go have this great shower. The last thing you're thinking of in that glorious, lovely shower is the dirty clothes next to the washing machine.
I get it.
And
That
yeah,
strange analogy, but it's so easy to digest.
hmm and that's exactly what it was like. And I'm just looking there and I'm like, okay, that was me.
Well,
Um,
now let me interrupt you. When you say I'm just looking there. Where is this there that you were looking from? Were you way high up and you can see way down, everything was small, or you just had an
no,
awareness of it, or but did it have any visual counterpoint, any individual visual aspect to it at all? A
yeah.
scene.
Oh, yeah. It was like I was still attached to the plane in some way. And I've since come to realize that that sound that I heard, that it was like the tether that was keeping me in the earth plane. And it was that just haunting kind of low drone, which, after watching, the policemen come in and reach through the windows were blown out and to turn the car off and people gathering. After all that happened, that sound changed. And suddenly it's this kind of beautiful, melodic, high pitched frequency of just an orchestra, this
Music of the
beautiful
spheres.
symphony, the music of the
Yeah,
spheres.
that's right.
And next thing, I am not looking at this accident and I'm in another space. And so I went through the tunnel so fast I didn't even see the tunnel. Yeah,
So when you were looking down upon everything else, where you did say the word above. It wasn't eye to
above.
eye. It
It
was
was
an
a bird's
above.
eye view.
Can you
Uh-huh.
just for the sake of give me a height?
50 feet.
50 feet.
Yeah, 50 feet.
So you leave this scene and you go to a place and where you're being seen. What was this like into this next phase of
Oh
this
my gosh.
experience for you? Oh dear Lord. Oh my gosh. You
I
start first words.
I always describe it as a place so beautiful it hurts to remember. That's the best way I can describe it. It was
What was the first thing you saw?
the air around me. The atmosphere was palpable. It had, like we look around and I can see the things that are in the room around me, but I can't see the air. The atmosphere was like I could see it. I was part of it. Um, and it was just beautiful. That music was still playing, and I was just kind of sitting in that space, just being. And you're like, you've just shed the mortal coil. You don't feel any pain. You don't really feel anything except for just this, oh, oh my gosh. And you're like, oh yeah. And there's a whole
Orgasmic?
lot of oh yeahs going on. Yeah.
Orgasmic?
Oh, totally.
On all possible levels. Just
On
this huge
all
bang
levels.
of elation and
Absolutely. It's, you're visually stimulated. The auditory is going nuts but there's no body.
nobody.
I'm suddenly
Just
very
you, nobody.
slim. I was very slim. And, it was incredible. And I just sat there. I just basked in it.
Tell me about time. Of course, and we all know the answer to that. It didn't happen, or it's so very different. When you went to the second level, if I know it's hard to use words to play with this level of consciousness.
Right.
How long
Right.
were you? Would you say in an earthly way that you were at level two? Let's call it level two.
No, no way to tell. There
Just no
is
way to
no,
describe it.
no, it's, by the
Did it seem
time,
long or short? Did it seem long or short,
oh,
a middle, or?
it seemed like forever. It
Mm,
really did.
mm.
It puts into perspective. There's still no words, but this whole idea that 1,000 years can pass in the blink of an eye. I get it.
I get it.
Because I was just becoming aware all around me. I'm remembering. I'm just like, again, it's these big ahas. Oh God. Oh yeah. The veil is lifted. Oh my God. Oh yeah. And so all of this stuff is coming back to you just at lightning speed. And so how long did that take? I don't know. On the ground, the body's there, and I'd say it was probably 15 minutes before the ambulance arrived. So I have no way of knowing, um, perspective wise, on that side of things, how long I was actually in that space. On this side of things, probably 15 minutes, 20 minutes max. Um, but it was long enough to know what was going on. I can tell you that.
So you're actually beginning to, at this level, integrate from the shock and awe and the sudden realization that my life, my existence is now different, to moving into, I love this word when it comes to near death or death, is remembering. It's not really a first time experience. Oh my God, what is all this crazy stuff? It's like you said, oh my God, I know this. I know this. I know this. So in level two, what begins to happen after level two, unless you want to stay in this and share a little more of what transpired with you?
Well, in that space, and it's interesting when you say remembering. It is like it's remembering, as
Mhm.
in re becoming a member of something that you've forgotten that you were part of. And you're suddenly very aware, oh my gosh, I've been a fractal of this whole all along. And it's a beautiful feeling to just be in that kind of space and to know that you're part of that. And I'm mesmerized by what's taking place around me. And how long did I sit like that? I don't know, but long enough for the atmosphere in front of me to start taking shape. Now this is where it got really cool. Um, because in that, leading up to that, I was, alone, but not alone. But the atmosphere begins to form in front of me, and two beings stepped forward, and they just sat there, hovered there, whatever they were doing, and waited. And it was that feeling. Have you ever, I don't know, I'm of an age where I'm starting to get the odd lapse here and there, particularly when it's not in context. Let's say I'm in my practice, and let's say I have a patient who comes in that I've known for 20 years. But if I see them in aisle 9 of the grocery store, I might not be able to remember their name. I can remember everything that's ever happened in their spine or their whole history or where they went on their holidays, but the name might slip out because I'm not seeing them in the right context. And so this is how it felt. I was like, I'm supposed to know you. I know you. And they just waited patiently. And then all of a sudden it was like a light bulb went on, and I'm like, "Oh my God, these are my guardians. We have guardians." I was so excited,
Is that a
and
difference between guides? These are guardians, or is the
guardians,
same?
guardians, guides,
Same synonymous. Okay.
whatever context people want to put that in, guardian angels, whatever but these angels didn't have wings if that's what they were. Um, and they took
Would
on
you
a
say they're just simply a higher version of our present self?
sure,
Okay.
absolutely. And I don't even think that the bodies were necessary, but
You're right.
there you are, freshly dead. And so I think they do whatever they can to kind of reduce the shock factor, as you're transitioning from one state to the next. You're turning from water into steam, and so they're doing everything that they can to help normalize that situation, because it's anything but frightening. I can tell you this, it's like walking from the kitchen into the dining room. Um, you're literally just walking from one room to the next. And so when I recognized what they were and who they were, it was like a homecoming of all homecomings. And it was like being surrounded by your very best friends who've been with you for who know everything and love you anyway. And it was incredible. And it seemed, if we're talking about time, it seemed like a very short space of time from that recognition to the point where I actually started doing a review. And I'm like, oh God, you hate even saying it because it does. It sounds so cliche. We've heard my life flash before my eyes.
Did it?
Um, but what was fascinating was so different than what you would expect. It was like being in a cinema that was 360. And here's where
Right.
my perception of time and what it means to exist and what it means to be concurrent or simultaneous, it just exploded right in front of me.
So let me
Um,
ask you this. Let me ask you this. This is a really delicious question. That's why I'm gonna step on your toes.
go.
Right now, are you remembering what happened, or are you reliving it?
Probably a little of both.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I can see you're coming from the space of being in it as you emote. So I can see you. I watch eyes and I'm accessing the file when they go to this side, and so that's what you're doing. But your heart and you're leaning forward into the camera, and the mic is saying, "Oh my God, I'm using my memory to launch me back into the vortex."
Mhm,
So
mhm.
thank you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But what was so incredible was there you are, and I'm looking at these things, and you've lived your life, you know all the stuff you did, the cringy stuff, and the good moments and all of it. And you're watching this, and it's like I'm 3 years old over here, and I'm 18 over here, and I'm 12 over here, all at the same time. And it's like, it's not the penny drops, it's like the whole bank dropped. And you're like, oh my God, this is what's happening. We're all of these all at the same time. And so this
Amen.
concept of time marching forward in a linear fashion just implodes right in front of your eyes. And it's just like, oh my God. It's incredible.
Wow. Wow.
It
And
it's
everything you're saying, even though I've never experienced death or near death, well, I almost died once, but I didn't have the near death experience. Being a spiritualist and playing in the cosmic arena as often as I do, mostly when I sleep. Somehow my awareness is no longer attached to the body that the mind craves. The mind craves the outer world and it craves the body. So when that's gone, the gate opens up and I literally get to gallivant into realms of reality that some people need death to experience. So, and
mhm.
so everything you're saying, it so correlates with everything I felt, and it just validates the fact that in my living, I've died. I'm experiencing the other side as you're so describing it, and I love that you say that you can't use words to describe these things, and in fact, trying to do so almost is blasphemic, and it paints the wrong picture to the person you're trying to give your best interpretation to about it. It
Mhm.
just doesn't describe it at all. So, wow. Did these beings eventually begin to speak in greater detail to you other than just sitting around and saying, hurry up?
It was just going back and forth. There were no audible words that I can remember. It was just that I could hear them, they could hear me, but nobody was talking.
When you
And
had your life review, darling, when you had let's say it was now over, or you're crossing the threshold of it being complete,
mhm,
of course, I'm sure you had the, oh, I get it.
mhm.
Again, this is so difficult because there's no words to describe. What is it, if you care to share, that you got from it other than we're all connected? What was your aha about your incarnation this time around, if that's not too personal?
No, not at all. I was so excited to go back, and I had that choice. It was very distinctly my choice. And I had been told then that if I'd made that choice to go back, that things were going to get quite interesting, that I was going to go back and I would be enhanced. Now growing up, I had already, I had prophetic dreams as a child. My dead grandfather, Dr. Garland Clark, was my best friend from the time I was old enough to know, and he'd been dead since I was 1. So I'd had an unusual childhood, so to speak, that way. But then as I got into the teenage years and into college, I was I was not utilizing these abilities in any way that looked like service to humanity. And it took that accident in order to kind of knock me back on track. And so at that moment, I knew that I had created this for myself. I knew that I had given myself, the literal 21 years into adulthood to remember why I had come here in the first place. And I hadn't quite made it. And so when you talk about death experiences, I don't know so much that people who have these near death experiences are because they're the chosen ones or because they're so enlightened. I actually think it's quite the opposite. It's because we were just a little bit too thick to get it ourselves, and we needed a big swift kick in the behind in order to fall in line with what we came here to do. And so I had a very, very clear understanding of what I needed to come back and do. And they said that I would be enhanced with abilities that would show themselves along the way and that they would always be there to support me. And they have from that day forward. There have been angels unaware who have walked into my life, as I'm sure you've experienced, and many people who are listening have experienced, where the synchronicities just, they amped it up 1,000-fold. And I don't know how to live any other way, to be honest. I live in constant expectation of something absolutely fabulous getting ready to happen. And it's a great way to live.
Fantastic. I totally get it. And so these enhanced abilities would be the healing with sound, frequency, vibration, and light.
hmm
Love it.
Yeah, I suddenly had this ability to touch somebody, and it was like downloading a hard drive. Now, like I
Well, that
didn't
could
even
be a
know what was
blessing and a curse.
Yes, indeed it can. Thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah,
A rose under your nose or a thorn in your side.
exactly. It's both, Well, isn't that part of the duality? We're here for the dichotomy of dark and light. And buddy, I came back with it, let me tell you. Um, because it's that whole turning the other cheek and doing unto others. It's always there. And there's sometimes you just want to be really ticked off. And there's sometimes yeah, I just want to do the wrong thing. I don't want to do the right thing today.
I want to be
Um,
human today. I just
I'd
want to be
like,
human today in
you know,
a freaking very amped up way
yeah,
today without judging myself. And I don't care who judges me for it.
yeah,
I just want to emote and express this energy that's driving me bonkers. And it will continue to drive me bonkers if I don't let it out.
exactly. I love the universe, but I want to curse a little, and
Yeah, yeah. You're from the South, girl.
exactly. But it's just so funny because everything that I do with such a different thought process. I am so present now in everything that I do because I am so aware that the tiniest little movement, you know, an interesting thing about going through that process and especially doing that review, you'd think it was these, oh, when I was nice to the little, that little kid that the other kids were picking on, or I did that kind gesture for that older person there, or I did. That's not the stuff that was highlighting. The stuff that was being highlighted were the tiny little things. Just the simple act. Like now, like I can reach into the dryer to take the clothes out, and I'll sit there for a second and I'll feel the warmth and I'll hold it, and I'm thinking, I've got these clothes and I have these clothes because I earned the money to buy these clothes, and then they're coming out of that dryer. I'm like, I know people who don't have a dryer. I know people who don't have the clothes. And I'm just sitting there in those moments, and you're literally in constant gratitude for what's going on. And it's incredible. And that's a big deal, especially when there are things going around you that are difficult or challenging. Um, you're charged at that point with going, you know better. You know better. When somebody does something that's really hurtful, that they are there so that you can show up for yourself. It has nothing to do what they say, what they're doing. It's all about you showing up. It's a big responsibility.
Yeah, and it requires us to die to live. You don't get out of here alive. In fact, you don't ever die. So you don't really. It requires us to die to live. Every day, every night that you go to sleep, you die. When you wake up in the morning, you're reborn. So as above, so below, on forever it will go. If we lose the physical body and we come back to the body, obviously we had a rebirth. I made a meme the other day that said something like reincarnation. If when we fully open ourselves up to the glory of Christ, you will be reborn right then and right there. So that kind of takes the the Christian fundamentalism, you know,
Mhm.
way of defending or rebuking the idea of reincarnation. But it was not. Well, then they, of course, they would say it's not the same. Well, I get it; it's not the same. But the idea of rebirth is a regeneration process. Would you agree that you, when before, but even during, when you had your experience, that you were validated? At least what I'm seeing, that things are always reborn and renewed, and that's what actually creates the expansion of the universe. There's no punishing being up there. In fact, it just sits here and unconditionally loves, but the cycle will continue until we move up the ladder and express and expand to the glory of that itself, right?
Mhm. Absolutely, because again, like I said, we're fractals of that whole.
Mm.
And what was so interesting, as the preacher's kid who's sitting there dead, and I'm looking around going, "Wait, isn't this where the judgment's supposed to be happening?" I'm sitting here and I'm watching these 21 years unfold all around me, and I'm like, "Where's the dude with the beard and the white robe?" And I'm like, "Hang on a second. I got these loving beings bookends, as I'm watching my life unfold around me, and I'm the one critiquing my performance. Hold on a second. I'm the one who's critiquing my own performance. Know ye not that ye are gods?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is incredible." And so in that moment, I'm watching everything with a completely different eye. I am going, "That was amazing. That was awesome. I would do that a little bit differently," but not from a place of judgment, from a place of complete understanding and compassion, and knowing that it was all okay. Even the really bad stuff, it was all okay. It was all experiential. And that, my friend, is huge. Because if you can run everything that happens to you through that filter, your life transforms immediately.
You think? Why did you move to Ireland?
Oh,
What's in
Lordy.
Ireland for you? What was in Ireland for you that would make you
For
go to
Ireland,
hang out with
well,
Mr. McCracken?
it's actually a funny story. Everybody's like, "Oh, did you move for Ireland? Did you marry an Irishman?" No. Uh, I was actually in school. I was in chiropractic school, which, by the way, I got there because my dead grandfather, the surgeon, said that I needed to go to chiropractic school, and I'm like, "Chiro what?" And he said that it was essential because of the mind, body, spirit aspect of that. It was a vitalistic philosophy as opposed to a mechanistic approach to the human form. It's knowing that the body is in service to the spiritual and emotional state. It's just allowing us to carry out that which we come here to do. And I'm like, "Oh, chiropractic is that?" And it allowed me the opportunity to get my hands on a whole lot of people legally, um, to start practicing this whole new download thing I've got going on, and knowing that, this cancer feels this way. This is what depression sounds like. And I was really honing my skills, um, to be able to use what was coming down the pike. And so I was working two jobs and I was in school, and I'd come home late one night and I had a housemate, and this guy, he's one of my favorite humans. Jojo is his name. Dr. Jojo Yance. He's amazing. And Jojo was just a trip. And so like every day I'd come home, he'd be vegetarian one day and then he was keto the next, and he was just this, he just wanted to try it all. And so he said, we call each other holy sibling, and he called me up and he said, "Sib, do you mind if I have a little house party tonight?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm at work till whatever." And he goes, "Well, I'm having a psychic over." And I said, "What?" So I get home from work and I'm tired, and I've been in school all day, and I've got Psychic Susie sitting in the front sitting room, and there's, like, several people waiting in this sitting room. So
Psychic Susan. It's
I
funny.
just went on back to my bedroom. And so, a couple hours pass, and I get this knock on the door, and it's JoJo, and he said, "She wants to see you." And, for somebody who's had the type of experiences that I have, I was kinda like, "Nah," which was surprising. But I was like, I'll pass. It's all right." And he's like, "No, she really wants to see you." And I'm like, "Okay." So I go in and she sits down and she looks at me and she goes, "I see a light switch. A light switch is turning on." She goes, "You've been seeing something." And I'm like, I had told nobody that I had been seeing these symbols in my vision, in my waking vision, and they were coming in groups of 3 until I got this whole alphabet. And she goes, "You've been seeing something, and they're a beacon to the next step of your journey. You're going to Europe." And I went, "Well, I got like $5 in my bank account, and I still have a
Right.
year of school left." And I'm like, "I ain't going nowhere." And she goes, "No, you're going. You're being called, and that's what these visions that you're seeing." I hadn't told JoJo. I hadn't told anybody. And so I'm like listening, and I'm going, "Well, that's nice, but not happening." I get called in on the Monday morning to the office of the president of the school. I was president of the student body at the time. And he said, "As president of the student body, you've just had an invitation to go over and speak in England on behalf of the school." And I was like, "Okay, that's the UK. It's getting close." And so when I went over there, I ended up going to Ireland. And long story short, I ended up finding some of these symbols. And so my pursuit to get back to Ireland was in search of these symbols, which are actually part of an ancient pre-Atlantean alphabet called the Goet alphabet.
Are they part of your healing
They are part of
modalities?
healing.
Dig it.
Absolutely.
Let's take
Absolutely.
a short commercial break. You okay with a 4-minute song and come back and do another maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes? I'm
Rock
so
on,
having a
friend.
blast. You remind me so much of me. You're like a sister that we grab each other and rub each other on the head kind of thing. Yeah, I dig it. Someone had the audacity to send me a message and interrupt my time with you. Her name is Michelle Freed. And she said, "Tell your guest she's the cutest thing." And you can tell her I said that.
Ah, right back at you,
Yeah,
sister.
she highly recommended you. She said you guys' personalities are going to be redonkulous. Everyone, my name is Keith Anthony Blanchard, hanging out, hanging in, hanging with Dr. Michelle Mary Helen Hensley, and we are speaking about near death healing with sound, vibration, frequency, and light. And again, as I said earlier, when we talk about frequency, we're talking about vibration, vibrational frequency, but also the frequency of how often a certain something happens. And when we can, depending on your perspective, when we can lengthen the intervals or shorten the intervals, depending on if it's something you're wanting or something you wanted to remove. Either way, you are vibrating. You are 98.6 degrees energy. You walk into 98.6 degrees sun temperature day, you can be sweating buckshot. So if you're this by default in your body, can you imagine the auric field that you have around you? And everything is in that auric field. Your deceased levels are in that auric field. And that place where my guest tonight went to, it's in that auric field. We don't really, the body doesn't, you definitely do not die. What really happens sort of as your consciousness leaves the time frame of the body's locale. Because even though you've passed and continue on, the body is still alive in some local dimension. Abraham Lincoln is still alive. You can bet your sweet bippy on that. My name is Keith Anthony Blanchard. I'm going to be right back with my guest, and we are speaking about near death and all kinds of fun things. She reminds me of my redonkulous, happy, nutty self. She had the opportunity to spend time with Divine Lover. So let's play my spiritual song from Lavender Soul, Divine Lover. I'll see you shortly.
I will be with you always until the end of time. You will never be alone.
I'll take that.
I am.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait. The image is fab. Okay. Oh, there used to be Hello, buddy. Are you okay? Are you okay?
All of my life,
Hi, bud. You
all
okay,
of my days, I feel you there beside me. All of my life, all through my days, I've seen places far away. Wondering just when, time and again, I have come to know you. Wondering just when, time and again, you are there beside me. When I create, when I feel love, whenever I feel you with me, I celebrate times of my life. There is only you and me. Help me know that. It is my will that you know me. I will not hide my love from you. You create your reality, and every moment by your own perceptions, your judgments, actions. Peace is a state of mind. Bliss is a state of heart. Heaven is a state of being. Deep in my heart, I know you're there. I can always feel you guiding my life to see the light that will lead me to the truth. When I create, when I feel love, whenever I feel you with me, I celebrate times of my life. There is only you and me. For you are my mother, my divine lover. I celebrate times of my life. There is only you and me. Help me live.
Welcome back to Center of Light. There's a pulse happening within your heart, and it's trying to get your attention and say, did I mention to you before? I think I did. I'm trying to say hi to you. The song went by Lavender Soul, my spiritual band, accompanied by Memphis Symphony Orchestra. How delicious is that? You have to want to jump into the fire to create this thing that you know is higher, but do you have the want? Do you have the cojones? Do you have the boobs? Do you have the whatever it takes? You don't have to follow someone else's model. Follow their passion, how they modeled themselves into this zone. The zone belongs to you. No one has a monopoly on the zone. Race car drivers do it. They shift, to use a point, themselves into the zone. Porn stars do it by allowing themselves to plunge in this sexual zone. Everyone does this, whether you be a musician, a cook, a chef, and if you're not living your life passionately, you are already dead. Dear Lord. And the sad thing is, it's okay to be dead, but are you having a conscious, lucid experience on the other side, like my guest tonight? And we're speaking with Dr. Mary Helen Hensley. Welcome back to Center of Light. I am having such a blast with you. You are so full of fun. You remind me of my crazy self, like I said earlier.
Well, thank you. That's the highest compliment.
Yeah, we don't want to be in the norm. Norm is old. Norm is
Normal is
2019. It's
Yeah,
dead.
that's so last lifetime.
Hello, Elaine. Good to see you, beautiful Elaine. Elaine is a phenomenal teacher, everyone. Something inside of my heart says, acknowledge Elaine like I acknowledge everyone else before. Check her teachings out. She's wide open. She will throw some stanky love heart all over you really quick. So we had talked about your healing abilities for those who are just arriving. Tonight is Center of Light Near Death Experience. My guest tonight had a pretty powerful impact. Double entendre. Powerful impact in 1991. 98? 91? 91.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed her. She died. Therefore, she was able to live. Are you changing your lifestyle? So I want to ask you, Dr. Mary, when you were in phase, whatever, did it continue to another level? And my back half of that question is, did those layers, if you did ascend, to use the word, to different levels, did things get more subtle and more subtle and more subtle?
No, it stayed pretty full on the whole time. a
Bad
really
on me.
good a really good friend of mine has just written a book, and it's called The In Between, about his near death experience. He died in a plane crash, and a phenomenal story. And it's, I think, it's such a simple description. It's the in between. It's like the Grand Central Station, because I think what happens is, one of the things that I do find small about a lot of religious tenets or dogmas is the fact that it's like, we live, and then we die, and then we go to a final destination. And it's just so not like that. Um, it's just this beautiful continuous journey where you just keep expanding. And yeah, I mean, it's just, so I stayed, I think, in that space between, because I didn't need to go any further at that stage. I was aware of what was there. I was aware of what was beyond, and I
Everything was in it.
knew that
Everything was there.
I wanted to come back in.
Can you, in a meditation,
I can't
at
hear you.
will, can you in a meditation, or can you in a meditation or at will, probably I would say a meditation, because there's no distraction. I mean, you don't want to do this at Kmart or Walmart or Walgreens, but even so, when you decide to loosen up and fall in, can you fall back into that sacred void, that beautiful sacred space that most of us have forgotten about? So in other words, do you have to really effort and sweat and squint to get there, or is it now a natural integrated default position in you?
Well, here's the thing. For the kid who's always been ADAD, attention dialed into another dimension.
I love it.
Here's what I find. I'm the one who's, okay, everybody be quiet, and let's sit in lotus, and I'm like, which I know a lot of people have that going on, and it's just calm the mind and all that. I am not that person. I have never been that person. But the beautiful thing that happened after this experience is that every single thing, it's like I said about the laundry, when I'm cleaning up the dog poop, when I'm making the school lunches, or when I am driving to work, I am in that space. And it takes a lot. It's funny. I notice more if I'm kind of knocked out of the space, because that's so much more apparent to me, because it happens so little. I've really, I'm going to say, mastered that without any effort, because it didn't take any mastering or effort on my part. It just became another way of being. Once you realize that that's who you are and what you are, it's just effortless. Yeah, it's pretty.
So you started writing. I'm assuming, and I think I'm going to be right. I'm arrogant. I'm going to be arrogant in this moment. I'm right. I assume you started writing because if you didn't, you were going to explode.
Would you believe that my daughters are 16 and 18, and I've been a single mom since they were 1 and 3. And when they started getting just to that little age that things started really happening for me, which was when they were literally old enough just to talk, I I could see things happening in their lives that were happening in my life that my parents didn't have the language or the understanding um, to help me through. They supported me with their love, and that's all they could do, because I literally, there was no box in there. There wasn't a box under the bed. There wasn't a box in the closet. There was no boxes in their lives that could even remotely begin to explain or fit me into in what I was doing and saying, and all the things that I was coming out with. And, that was kind of hard. It was a little lonely growing up, because my father, again, being the minister, he was seeing these things happen. They were in his face. He couldn't deny them, yet he also couldn't explain them. And I think that made him uncomfortable. And so he had this deep booming voice. And, I was 4 years old when he sat me down, and I'd been talking for as long as I could talk about Judge, which is what we called my grandfather. And Judge said this and Judge did this, things that there's no way at that age I could have known. And, he says to me one day, Sugar, do you know what the difference is between alive and dead? And I'm like, what? I was like 4. And so they did the very best that they could to help me. But I think he never wanted me to be taken advantage of or exploited, just because he didn't get it. He knew something big was happening, but he didn't have a language for it. And so I didn't want that same thing to happen with my girls. And so I actually wrote the first book, Promised, almost as like a little manuscript for my kids. It was the story of my life and how it unfolded, because I wanted them to read this and go, oh, that's what's happening to me. Oh, okay, it's not so weird. It's happened to somebody else. And I've been told many, many times that I have a very blue collar way of describing that which is difficult to digest.
I would agree with that. I
and I think
absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
I think that's why I got picked for the job.
Love it.
So that's how I started writing. And then, of course, the bug takes over, and I just, there was so much in there. And I mean, I'm writing, I just finished a book 2 days ago on, and I'm an insomniac.
So
And
there's
so I
no
use that to
possible
my
there's no
advantage.
possible way that writer's block is ever going to happen to you.
Um, No, I need to, I'm a pretty good time bender, I have to say.
I dig
Uh,
that. I love that. People ask me all the time, Keith, you're such a busy guy. How do you find time to do all that? And I said, when you do what you love and you're in the garden and you're in the void, no time will find you, in
yeah,
fact.
yeah. It's, to be just blunt, time's my bitch, not the other way around.
You sassy mouth. Let's talk about frequency work.
Mhm.
Frequency
Frequency. That's it.
frequency work, because we're freaks. I mean, you know we're freaks. We're just not.
No, no
I'm assuming that you were a black sheep.
you reckon?
If not, you are now. Right? So
Yeah.
tell me about frequency work, what that is for you, and what all that entails.
Okay, so what happens is, as I described, that those sounds were so important in that whole experience, moving from this plane and then into that space between, where the music of the spheres is happening all around me, and going, oh my gosh, of course, all we are is frequency and light. Oh God, of course, that's all we are is frequency and light. And so I get back, and as I get out of school, and then I moved to Ireland, and I have this chiropractic practice. And um, you know, I was moving all along. I had this whole side thing going in healing all along, and it was the lines were just getting blurry, because somebody would come up, and they're in for their adjustment, and I'm like looking over there, and the dead grandmother's standing in the corner, and I'm like, hey sweetie, we don't do that here. It's not till Tuesday, and it just started getting stranger and stranger. But what was happening was, the more people that I touched, I started recognizing these patterns, and they were coming in the form of these sounds, these frequencies. And I was like, oh, well, gosh, that lady with breast cancer sounds the same as that lady. And
Hello.
that's how it
Being a
started.
musician, you just hit me with a big bell mallet right across my skull. I totally get that. Thank you for that. Please continue.
It's like being able to taste a color. It's like being able to, so I'm hearing these patterns, and I'm like, gosh, every time I'm around somebody with depression, I hear the same sound. every time that somebody's got a heart issue, I hear the same sound. And so I'm like, gosh, all of a sudden it starts dawning on me that I'm just not quite as special as I think I am, and I'm just going
But
to have to
you're actually in the process of learning a language that already exists. You're being shown like this means glass. This means that. So
right.
you're going, oh my God, someone is teaching me a dialogue.
I'm
That is
fluent in frequency.
phenomenal.
Yeah. And what was so fascinating was that, as it continued on and I started, you practice it. If you practice a guitar every day, you're going to get good at it. And so I'm practicing this every single day, and I'm starting to get really good at the fact of when I'm touching and downloading someone's story. And like I said before, it's not, I'm not looking at what's in their bank account or what color underwear they're wearing. I'm getting relevant information.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. 'Cause some of them weren't wearing any. And
Thank
I'm
God.
getting relevant information as to how I can assist them. And I always call myself a window washer. All I'm doing is wiping the windows clean. That's what healing is, so that people can see out for themselves. You're literally empowering them to understand that that power to heal themselves is within them. As above, so below, as within, so without. And it was quite phenomenal how quickly it started happening. And you'll hear different people who are like Carolyn Mays, medical intuitive, same thing. She would see these repeat patterns. So for me, it happened in these sounds. And so one of the things that I always had, just used to break my piano teacher's heart when I was a little kid because I had perfect pitch. And I hated to practice. I hated it. My grandmother was a concert pianist, and
Are
so
you
it
a
was
singer or a musician of some sort?
oh yeah, I play in all the Irish music sessions,
Oh
man.
my gosh.
Oh yeah, and what better way to get to know the real people,
So are
And
you a singer or are you a musician and a singer? Or, I mean, and if so, what is your instrument other than your voice?
I play the bowron,
The what?
the Irish drum, the round drums.
Dig that.
Yeah, yeah, and I sing, and yeah, so it's interesting then how it all began to unfold that way, and I could just literally touch somebody, and I would see like a mind movie, and so if there was something that was in this life or a concurrent lifetime that was blocking them from their healing or from dying well. And that's what people have to remember too. Healing isn't always about making the uncomfortable stuff go away. It's about normalizing or bringing peace to that which is uncomfortable. And so one of my greatest roles as a healer is to be there to assist somebody in dying well. And it's just passing from one room to the other. And so just began to be able to hone in on these frequencies. And then, fast forward and a few years back, I end up meeting a guy who's a sound engineer. He's a music producer in Los Angeles, and he's 40 shades of freaky. And so he totally got all of this. And so I said, you know what, how about, he'd already been working on some stuff. And then all of a sudden I was just like, hey, I need this, 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 and this. And I need this because I wanted a tool to be able to give to people so that they could go and work on this themselves. Because suddenly you step back and you go, I'm just the facilitator. Healing is really allowing someone to recognize the divinity. It's the apotheosis.
I love it. I love it. Thank you very much. When I love what you just said. Healing is not about Keith, Mary, the healer. We're these people holding a space because we recognize that very space about ourselves as to why we can hold that door open to allow someone else to step in. And when you hold that space and you recognize someone and they say, okay, I see that you're looking at me and I trust you, so I'm going to join you in that space. They are choosing the healing by you, whoever you are, being the facilitator of holding the gate open. It has nothing to do with me, Mary, the yous. It has to do with the you that chooses to say, I trust this person so much as an innovator, an inspiration to say, I want to step into this reality that they have chosen for themselves, as to why I always look at them and they're so freaking happy. Mm-hmm. That's true healing. That's how healing happens. It doesn't come from medicine. Yes, I understand the pharmaceutical company and how it does have its benefits. I get all that. And so the West and the East begin to marry, and out of that comes the birth of a divine child. It's not about the Christ, and it's not about the Hindi, and it's about all of them together getting along and playing in this cosmic sandbox happily together forever.
Exactly.
So before we go, wow, we've been rocking it hard. I love it. Let me ask you a question. Since we have been talking about the experience and the experience after the experience and the ongoing experience, what did it feel like to re-enter? Did you feel you moving through the layers of the thickness and the density and the meat suit, things that we would all assume that you're probably going to tell us? And when you open your eyes for the first time to be, hello, back in reality.
Okay. So imagine putting on a pair of jeans and putting on a pair of sweatpants on top of that, putting on another pair of sweatpants on top of that, and putting on an undershirt and then a long sleeve shirt and then a jumper, and then getting your biggest coat and putting that on and a big hat on your head and a big pair of boots and jump into a swimming pool.
Oh my God. And then jump into a swimming pool. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's kind of like, does my butt look big in this body? You know, it's very heaviness that happens, you know, when you first come in, but then that lifts, you know, but I also have
The
some
butt
very,
or the
the
worry
butt,
lifts?
the butt lifts, the heaviness, you know, because you're kind of just like, what just happened? What actually just happened here? And then when little things begin to happen where it's those divine signs where they're letting you know you're not cray cray, sister, that actually did happen. And you're like, oh my gosh, wow, wow. And it just continues to unfold. But I know people who have also had experiences where they plummeted into depression. And, you know, I'm very fortunate. I consider myself very fortunate to have chosen this personality type because I've always been the cheerleader type. So I couldn't wait to get back in here. And even I'm Gomer Pyle. I'm sick as a dog, but I'm having the time of my life, you know? And that's kind of how I look at it. And, you know, I broke my neck. So I broke my spine. I was told I couldn't have children. I had two. I had all of these things happening.
Well, that
But
just comes with practice.
yeah,
Regardless.
you know, but you know, I have quite substantial pain every day of my life. And
But it's
I
not
wake up,
suffering.
no, it's not suffering. Those
It's
are two
not. It's
totally
just simply pain. It's not suffering. Yeah.
pain. I am not the pain. Um, and so I wake up every morning and I ask myself one question every day. Is the pain I'm in right now bigger than what I want to do today? And there have been very few times where that answer has been yes. You know, it's very few. Like I could count on one hand.
Thank you for joining me on Center of Light. You are such a blessing to me. You were refreshing to me.
Well, thank
You
you.
know, we all like ourselves, and I
Same
like
to
seeing
me.
myself in you. You were fun. You reminded me of wholesomeness, good old Creole girl kind of like. Let me ask you this. What's happening to you now? What's coming up? This is the question I want to ask you. This is the third question I usually ask my guests is, what is, God to you? What is that? Whatever that is, what is that for you, through you? Using words to sully the sacred.
Okay. Silly the sacred. Yeah. Well, what's so interesting is that probably if you'd asked me that question before I had that accident, I would have described God as something outside of myself that I was reaching towards, that I was moving towards. I was trying to be like, I was trying to be liked by, I was trying to emulate. And I wouldn't answer that the same way at all now because I am that. I am. It is truly the apotheosis. It's man's realization that he already is that which he seeks. And so, you know, for I'll be so bold as to say it. I am that. You are that. So I don't see God or source as anything outside of me. I see myself completely, fully, and wholly as a fractal of that whole. And in you, I see me in everybody around me. I see me living this life through a different set of eyes. And so
Mm.
I always try to take that into account, that anyone, no matter how rotten they may seem, is bringing something to the table through their experiences.
Hmm.
It's like being in all places at once. And you have the choice when it comes on your doorstep to either go, no, I don't want to see that, or to go, thank you for bringing that to me. Um, I don't have to, I don't have to take everything that you've lived on board as part of my personal experience in this body. That's what I think is so fascinating by the kids who are incarnating now, because what I'm seeing at lightning speed are these kids who are coming in,
Totally agreed.
and they are like, oh, mom, you remember when you were raped when you were 17? And I'm like, yeah, well, you know what? I don't actually need to know what that was like, because through you, I know what the experiences were, what that brought to your life, how you've utilized that. And it's just not something that's going to happen in my life. And they know this with certainty. And I love that about the kids that are coming in, because they just have a completely different experience. And we're always on their backs about being on the phones, and they're different than us. They are programmed for something,
Hybrids.
a completely
Hybrids
different
would be a
experience.
good word. Not hybrids would be a good word. Not in the hype or trendy kind of word of extra. That's not what I'm talking about. They are
Yeah.
hybrids. They are part of the old world. Which, if you're 18 like me and
Hmm.
21 like Mary, the point is they're hybrids. They're a part of that, because how can there's no way they can get rid of their DNA that came from us and the ancestry that came from us, which we are. So that is part of the fluidity of where they are now. But where they now are is they're not going there. They're living here. They're living in the moment. They see everything. Kids do not learn by what you tell them. They don't. They learn by just simply watching and observing. So so I guess the powerful question is, what is truly the position of watching and observing? Was, I would assume for you, like Mary, is when you were in that experience, you were from a place of being a watcher and observing everything that is happening. And kids by default are that, until we slap their hand and say, don't touch that thing on the table that your great grandmother gave me. It's too precious to me. Well, they're
Right.
touching it because they think in fact, they don't think, they know it belongs to them. So they're not disconnected until we start slapping the hand and telling them no. That begins the rift that later they or anyone, they have to mend, because all that would have been instilled upon them. Would you like to leave us with a final thought about anything that where we can contact you,
Yeah.
any events or anything at all?
Well, if you go, my website is maryhelenhensley.com. And if you go under downloads, there is a beautiful culmination of my work with Greg Papania, who is the music producer, where he has put together these things where I was just like, dude, we got to come up with something that people can do this themselves. I'm a big fan of doing the homework yourself. And as we know, if I put my doctor's hat on, we know it takes between 3 and 4 weeks to reprogram the neural pathways in the brain. It's so doable, so doable. And so frequency is a wonderful way to do that. And so what I've done is I've created a listener's guide with what each frequency represents, stands for, and how the listener can use that in their everyday life. And it's something they're really trying to change. They can use that, run it 28 days, focusing with the intention that this is something they want to change. And I was like, man, I want people to have that same ability. You don't have to be able to hear the frequencies the same way that I do. My job, I'm out doing all the research so that I can hand it to you so that you can use it in your own life, because you're off doing things that are different to me. And everything that we're doing is important. So it's under Larimar Dreams in my downloads on the website. I'm contactable there. And I have coming out very shortly. I've just recorded the first audiobook for Audible, Amazon, ever done with the healing frequencies behind it.
Yay.
So when you're listening to each story, each chapter, the frequencies that correlate with healing that particular subject matter are actually playing behind my voice as I'm speaking. It's pretty incredible. I'm very excited about it. And I have also just completed a children's book for 9 to 12, the preteens. That is a series of books that addresses gender identity and understanding, because that's when they're most vulnerable. And these kids that are coming in are very different than we are. They love people. They don't care if it's a man, a woman, but but they just love who they love. And so we have to really rethink the way that we welcome in and accept these children into our lives. And also, they can't find themselves in any literature. So you take the LGBTQ kids, and you're like, here's a children's story. I'm like, they're all the same. It's the princess and the prince and the da da da. And so I've created this series of books. The first is Hugh and the Manatee, Humanity. And
that is lovely.
and
I love it.
yeah, so that's how I'm doing it, through a series of books that way. And so, yeah, I'm just flat out doing everything I can do to just shine a little light.
Thank you very much for joining me in this family, this tribe of Yanava. What is this Y, this N, this V? Y is the heart. It's the yoke. That which is always. It's the 0 point. It's everything and the nothing. The heart, the sacred heart. And Na is the mind, the linear mind. Hopefully it's a clear one so that you can find yourself. And Va is the backbone. It's erect. Look in the V. There's a spine there. Ya, heart, God, will, power. Mind, clarity, to be used as a tool instead of it using you every second, every minute, every hour, making you a slave governed by the monkey. And when you get all that together and you erect yourself, oh my God, this is your sacred soul name, everyone. God is the whole hand. This is you, this is me, this is your mom, this is your friend. And we think we're all separate because we're too busy monkey-minded looking at the empty space. When you realize that the Christ consciousness is the knuckle where everything joins and originates. And then when you look at the hand in its entirety, then you realize, like my guest said tonight, there is nothing that is not you. It's all you. It's always been about you. It will always be about you. Even in your selfishness, you will forever be a selfish creature. There's no escape from that. Well, Keith, I do these selfless things because it brings me joy. Well, who is this person that is bringing joy to is my question. So when you understand that and you use that level of wit, consciousness, balance, wisdom, inspiration, you will never fall into violation of yourself or treating anyone else the same way. You just won't. Not because it's bad and you're going to be in trouble. It's just something that just simply doesn't appeal to you anymore. It becomes something that is apparent. And your divine parent says, you are loved beyond measure.